So we have with us Tina from Germany. She's also a journalist. Tina, tell us what are your impressions on India's G20 presidency?
Well, it's a very important and very well-organized Indian presidency. I'm with the German delegation. We unfortunately just arrived this morning with the Chancellor Scholz, so we have just a small impression, but we were told, even by the Chancellor himself in the airplane, that they really appreciate the Indian presidency. It's a complicated one with very important Russian and Chinese president not being here and lots of complicated issues, but as far as we hear, it's very efficient, very constructive, and very organized. And I think that President Modi could already announce that the AU, the African countries, are coming, and he could do that right away at the beginning. Is a real success and surprise.
Ma'am, what are your expectations on the policy outcomes? Because tomorrow is an important day. We are all hoping for the leaders' declaration to come out. So what are your expectations?
I think my main expectation is that there will be a joint declaration, a communique, final declaration. So far I hear it's not easy, so I think the world is waiting if G20 still has common solutions for lots of important international problems. So for me, this is one of the most important ones. And then, of course, the Belt and Roads Initiative here, and maybe what will be joined on climate. I think this is very important as well.
Right. Ma'am, on the climate front, there is, of course, some developing countries have also been pointing out that developed countries need to fulfill their commitments. Mm-hmm. Where do you think that debate is going to get?
I think it's fair to say that the Western countries, put it that way, who have a very high outcome of CO2, and they had already the economic growth. So I think it must be a fair share, and it needs a lot of money coming from the Western countries, coming from Germany as well, to finance the switch and to make it possible that that all countries here can tackle climate change.
Right. Ma'am, my last question to you. India has spoken about inclusion, and now the inclusion of African Union almost seems to be done. What are your thoughts on that? And also today is a day when some important bilateral meetings are going to be held between both countries. Mm-hmm. So what are your expectations on that front?
I think that the AU, the African Union, is joining is a huge success, maybe even the success. It's 55 countries, it's 1.3 billion people, it's the fastest growing and youngest population. President Modi pushed very hard to get them in, Chancellor Scholz as well, and I think this is important to really make the global South having a real big and be a real big membership, and for me it's one of the victories and successes of that presidency here.
Yes, ma'am. And on the bilateral meetings that are going to take place?
The bilateral meetings
between India and Germany today.
Yeah, I know. I know that both President Modi and Chancellor Scholz are getting along quite well. I was with the Chancellor traveling to India some time ago. I think for Germany, India is one of the main partners, not to kind of get away from China, but to be a very global, important player. And I think this is something I will watch very closely.
Thank you so much, ma'am. As part of India's G20 presidency, India is hosting about 2,000 international journalists. One of them is here with me now, Oliver from Germany. Thank you for speaking to us, sir.
Yes,
Oliver, tell me, what are your impressions of India's G20 presidency been like?
I mean, it's very unique, the presidency, right? Because we live here and we also covered some of the events that's been happening this year, and there were so many smaller events, right? We went to Kashmir, for example. There were other events, of course, in Goa and so on. So, yeah, quite a lot of events that India has put up, and of course this one, another big one, and yeah, we are excited to cover it right now.
And, so India is also going to have bilateral meetings with Germany today. On the policy front, do you think India's presidency has done well?
I think that's too early to decide. I think we have to look a little bit on if there's going to be a joint communique at the end, right? I heard that they're on a good path right now. I mean, of course, the main topics are, is there going to be a consensus on the war that's happening in Ukraine? Then, of course, climate change, the big issue where there's still talks about that, right? So we need to see what's happening. But, of course, as is already known that the African Union will be a part of G20, I think that's a big thing, right? So, yeah, let's see what comes out tomorrow.
Yes, the inclusion of AU is something that has been seen as a highlight. As somebody who comes from Germany, which is the developed part of the world, what do you have to say of that and India's push for this to happen?
Well, I think it's great to get more members into G20. I think Africa is such a big part of the world. There are so many economies growing in Africa right now, and I feel it's always good to include these countries as well, because otherwise, I mean, what forum is it if you don't include everyone, right? So I think that's a major success actually, and I feel that's good for G20. Or is it going to be G21 then after that? I don't know.
Yes. And last question, tell us about your personal impressions of India. What did you eat? What did you like? What did you not like?
I mean, I've been living here for 2.5 years, and I find it really fascinating to live here. I feel like India is actually a great place to travel. I have to say that there are so many great parts of India. I like Kerala a lot, for example. I like the food in Kerala a lot. Recently, I've been to Hyderabad. I ate chicken biryani, which I really, really like. So, yeah, you've got so many. Culture-wise, of course, India is fascinating, and yeah, I can only encourage people to come here and visit.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.